Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Media Show. I'm Nick Palavito. I'll be your moderator for today's Food Fight. And we're going to be talking about slogans. In other words, slogans that have been used quite often to frame people's mind and change their situation. For example, rather than an inheritance tax, we call it a death tax, would just be one particular slogan that gets thrown out there. And we've seen slogans that have taken place over and over again. So with that, and of course, we have a slogan master who was a former president of the United States. But slogans tend to change people's viewpoints on things, and they're sophomoric, but they tend to work. So with that, we're going to bring in one of our gentlemen who has over 100 years in broadcasting experience, a person you've seen many times on the Pod TV network, the head of the online dinner party, Mark Lee. Mark, I'm sure you're going to have some slogans you can.
I've got a slogan. As a matter of fact, I've got a slogan revolving around our new show that I just mentioned on economics and all along those lines. But many folks will follow networks that exist and all of that. And there are a group of students from George Washington, both students in the master's program and in the undergraduate program as well. They are studying sports marketing. Some people would say that that is one of those wasted majors that we talk about, but they're actually going for some very interesting jobs and all along those lines. But ESPN had a show called First Take. So the folks were trying to figure out what they would call their show, which premiered earlier today. And of course, since they are students and were given a fresh perspective on the sports world, why not call it Second Take? Henceforth, the slogan. So the show is called Second Take, which is a play on First Take and all along those lines. So I was really pleased when Siobhan and his folks told me that that was going to be the name of the show.
I saw that show. Yeah, I wasn't sure where that was coming from, but I was going, hey, is that ours? Because there were all these young people talking about sports. And I'm obviously an addict of the University of Miami, who did well as we beat Texas A&M. And this year we made in the top 25. And of course, there's other schools that the ACC gobbled up. One is out west. And we have another person out west in this area. They gobbled Stanford, gulp, and they gobbled UCal Berkeley, gulp. And what we haven't gobbled yet is Jim Eade, who is actually in the San Francisco Bay Area. But I don't know if he has any affiliation with those two wonderful schools. And then, of course, down south area, the group that caused all of these problems in football, USC and UCLA, by bolting over to the Big Ten. And with that, the Big Ten representative, Rick Rosner.
So I'm affiliated with, and my wife, we went to the University of Colorado, now coached by Deion Sanders, with his kid as a very effective.
I used to live in Boulder. I lived in Boulder and went to University of Denver.
Yeah, Boulder's a very nice city. Very expensive now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. They had some good restaurants there. And of course, also in Canada, we have Sasha Starr coming in from Canada. Yes, we're going to look at the area of slogans today. Oh, the dark horse. Rick, did you ever hit the dark horse in Boulder?
I bounced the dark horse. I caught fake IDs there.
Are you serious?
Yeah. They used to. It was I think $5 for the first fake ID, $7 for the second, and $10 for every ID after. I was the king of catching fake IDs
at the dark horse.
Okay. And I worked in a ton of bars.
The dark horse had really great hamburgers. It was a great place to eat out in Boulder. And oddly enough, the dark horse was still there.
It's still there.
Years later. I was in Boulder in 1983, and the dark horse, I went back several years ago, was still there. I was going there. Usually restaurants go out of business.
It used to be part of a chain, and I worked for like 3-4 bars in that chain.
Really? I didn't know that became a chain. And also, we bring in Jacoby McDuffie, who's the head of the Gamers Den, and he's also does I think he does the Durham Bulls games in the evening. Right, Jacoby? I hear a train going
I'm on mute. Somebody's got a train.
Yeah, it's got a train going by. Right. Okay. All right. So we're going to start off with the area of slogans. One person who masters it is the name of Donald. He used sophomoric, what do they call it, slogans all the time to get people to irritated at that. at that. And so what they do is you basically have to find something and then turn it into a slogan or some sophomoric, what do I call it, middle school mentality, or what is known as the dumbing down of America. And then you get the voters' attention. So, Jim, do you have any thoughts on that? In other words, slogans and the dumbing down of America?
Well, this is not a new phenomena. I'm sure that people have always underestimated the intelligence of the American population, and rightly so in many cases, because sloganeering does seem to work. And my personal favorite for the amount of disdain I had for it was Nancy Reagan's "Just Say No." We have a country that's suffering tremendously from problems around addiction, and we were talking earlier about all the the opiate deaths that are happening. It's a real plague on the youth of America today, and the "Just Say No" was so insensitive and so pointless, and yet it became something that people rallied behind. And this is the problem with sloganeering, is that it can be pointless, ineffective, and serve no purpose whatsoever, and actually cause harm, yet people embrace it because it's simple, it's understandable, and that's what people seem to respond to.
In the 1970s, conservative think tanks figured out that low information voters, which is a euphemism for not bright voters, are more easily mobilized than other they turned being dumb into a demographic. And we're looking at the result of 50 years of that. Fox News, simple messages, bright colors, pretty women in tight dresses, square-headed men. Everything about Fox is kind of simple and just clearly understood. And one of the problems with being old is remembering when things used to be different. In the 60s and 70s, the Democrats were aggressive with messaging. And now the Democrats lean back and kind of think, well, we'll just let the Republicans be horrible and then people will vote for us because we're nice. And I get frustrated that the Democrats are crap at messaging.
If you're wondering why I'm sort of smirking, so the "Just Say No" initiative, we'll call it, from the United States. Of course, you exported that all over the world. And I remember as a teenager, one of our comedy shows did a show of that. There's a bunch of teenagers in a room, and they said, "Okay, teenagers, we're going to do a role play." And the guy comes out and says, "Look, would you like some drugs?" And the kid goes, "No." And the drug dealer just walked away. And it was just like, it sort of highlighted how silly that way of thinking actually is. Rick, I'll just say in relation to Fox, I think what sometimes gets missed by those of us that are perhaps more highly educated is that there's a lot of people that are actually finding it difficult to keep up with a lot of what is sort of being said. And especially like today, there's a lot of changes that are being made in the LGBTQ community and the use of pronouns, and you're having to use language differently to how it was. I mean, I'm jumping on a plane in a few hours, and if I was to refer to the cabin crew members as a stewardess or a steward, that would be heresy. But it wasn't that long ago when I was a teenager, that's what you called them. Then it became flight attendants and all that sort of stuff. And like personally, I don't see a problem with calling someone a waitress or a waiter. But in America, you guys call them servers, which I don't really like that term personally. It's just, I don't know, I'm not used to that term. You're here to serve me. I don't like the term, but I think there's a lot of people that are just like, look, leave me alone. And I think that they find a home in more conservative or more right-leaning media, where they don't feel as though, one, they're being lectured to on their morality or being called racist or sexist or anything like that. Because I think very few people will actually walk around and say, yeah, I'm sexist, I'm a homophobe. They just have concerns. They haven't really kept up with what the so-called elite class is doing. And they're like, you know what, you educated people that UC Berkeley can just stay in California. I'm out here driving a tractor. Leave me alone. And I don't think that those people are evil people. I just don't think those are priorities for them. And that's why they're going to go to networks like Fox who are going to say, yep, these people, the swamp, and they're going to, they're trying to trans your kids, and they're trying to tax you, and they're trying to do this, and they're trying to do that. And people are going to go, yep, that's exactly right. Yep, they are doing that. I've got people on TV that agree with me.
The one thing that I was staggered by was the amount of people that said, I'm voting for President Trump because he tells it like it is. This is a con man, a liar, a compulsive liar. He doesn't know when he's lying. And people are saying he's telling it like it is. You can fool it, most of the people, most of the time, but not everybody all the time. I still hold my.
Isn't that what
bumper sticker mentality that we have, and it's easy to gravitate to. And if you can find, I think, Nick, what you had pointed out, that easy, simple slogan that people will cling on to: war on drugs, just say no. These easy things for people to go to. And Rick, you're spot on. The Democrat Party is horrible at messaging because the Democrat Party wants nuance, and you cannot do in a bumper sticker the whole nuance of what you're trying to explain. And it's easy for the Republican machine, which they are great at messaging. That is one of the best things that they are at. Because right now their whole push is Trump is for the people. That's easy to buy into. It's an easy slogan to buy into.
And they stick to the message. Like if you tune into Fox at 6 a.m., they're saying the same thing at 3 p.m.
Yep.
So the message is repeated over and over and over.
It's that old adage that says if you say it loud enough and say it enough times, people will believe it.
But Shaquille, I don't believe in the elitism versus the salt of the earth is the basic problem. There's been a problem between urban and rural, which I think is separate, because when you're talking about the wokeism factor, the speech and stuff, I find that personally annoying. I can't really get behind a lot of the types of things. I can remember when I said to someone www. something. And they said, it's not dot, it's a period. And I was, okay. Everybody's going to come down on you for something in terms of language. But, you basically have to say at some point, enough is enough.
Folks, one of the biggest slogans.
One at a time, guys.
I just want to take a brief liberty and just change the subject from American politics just for a moment. So talk about Australian politics. It's so we have a referendum coming up. About whether or not our, we'll call them First Nations to keep you guys happy, whether our First Nations people should have what they're calling a voice to Parliament. So I received that letter when I came back to Australia, as well as, I'm just covering up my address, as well as my fine for not having voted in the New South Wales state election. And I've also got a fine for not having voted in the federal election. So I'll have to deal with that because I was overseas at the time. But anyway, we received this booklet. And I think it does a pretty good job of explaining both sides of the argument. So it's a referendum booklet, which I don't think you guys have the ability to have federal referendums in America. I'm not sure about state referendums, though, so someone can correct me if that's correct. But yeah, so they've actually outlined in here the cases for the yes or no campaign. And I thought they've done a pretty good job. I think they've been reasonably fair to both sides. The yes campaign was actually able to say what they wanted to say in it. The no campaign was able to say what it wanted to say. I personally have some very grave concerns about it. And, I will say that I probably am, more right-leaning than left-leaning, but I'm not an extreme right-winger. I'm pretty centrist, I think. But I had some concerns. And I read a newspaper article by somebody who is a Sky News presenter, which is owned by Rupert Murdoch. So that's a very right-wing media channel. And he wrote an article in The Australian, which is a right-wing newspaper. And he actually wrote that in support of the Yes campaign, which was quite surprising. So I read it and I thought, yeah, actually the points that he made were quite accurate. And the reason I'm saying all that is I think I've sort of discussed this before, where if somebody's not going to watch Rachel Maddow, for example, it doesn't matter how correct what she says is. If the person's not interested in hearing her in the first place, you really need somebody who's on the other side to be able to speak truth and say, look, actually, in this particular case, here are some of the other issues. And I thought that Chris Kenny wrote a really good article on that. The other thing that I was sort of reflecting on this myself, and I think I have a tendency, because I'm so anti-authoritarian and I'm such a, I became, somebody who had a problem with authority as a teenager and never grew out of that. I think when I see celebrities and I see, politicians and all your big media and big corporations all supporting something, my automatic knee-jerk reaction, if I have a choice and I haven't had a chance to look at what they're actually supporting, I'm going to oppose it. Right? If you're a big celebrity and you're saying you need to do this, I'm like, no, there's no way in hell I'm doing it, because I don't trust you. Go sing a song, go recite some lines in a movie, go dance, go be entertaining and amusing, okay? But don't tell me what to do. So I think there's a lot of that these days. I think there's a lot of people saying, well, if celebrities are supporting it, it's a big company supporting it, I'm not going to do it. And I think that's an interesting question, isn't it? What do you do with people like that? Because there is a big group of people today in the United States that are like anti-establishment. I'm not doing it. If they tell me I should, I'm not going to do it.
No, I hear what you're saying, Shaquille, but along those same lines, and I'll just say my own opinion, I am actually a fan of celebrities and entertainers speaking their mind. I think Harry Belafonte, who recently passed, was a master of speaking his mind. He had definitely spoken around civil rights and a number of other issues while also singing and being known for his songs. The same with Sidney Poitier, the same with a number of other folks that were feeling that they wanted to use their voice to bring the issues. Leontine Price, the famous opera singer, comes to mind, and all along those lines. So I don't have any problem with folks doing that. We can even go back in time to like Josephine Baker.
I'm not suggesting that celebrities shouldn't speak their mind. They should. What I'm saying is that I think there's an increasing percentage of people that just aren't going to listen to them. And I'll just give you one example of this in Australia. When Pink came over here 10, 15 years ago, she was very popular, and she had a go at the Australian farming industry in relation to a thing that we called milsing the sheep. And it can sound barbaric, but the repercussions of not doing it was even worse. So this actually caused a bit of outcry. The Australian mentality was, go back to America, go back to California. You don't know anything about sheep farming. In the end, she actually had to backtrack what she had said, and to her credit, she did backtrack it and apologize for making the comments. I think that's the sort of thing. You can be a celebrity. You're entitled to express your view. But just because you're a good singer doesn't mean that I should vote in line with what you think is right.
So the irony and the problem with that is it's not about celebrity. For example, the Dixie Chicks spoke out. They got kicked out of the U.S. People wanted to burn their CDs. Jason Aldean sang a song about a small town that he was never even from, and he became number one because it's just basically people get in their echo chambers and their bubbles and only want to hear from those in their echo chambers that actually confirm what is going on in their echo chamber. It's not a matter of being celebrity or whatever. I mean, Donald Trump was a celebrity, but you know what? They're voting in droves for him. I mean, Ronald Reagan was a celebrity, but they're voting in droves. So it's not about being celebrity. It's about people get in their echo chamber, get in their bubble, and want confirmation and not actually to be challenged or to be pushed. Because if you tell me that it's wrong of me to think that oh my goodness, I should be against gay rights because that if you're saying anything against saying that gay rights should happen, then I'm never going to listen to you because you want your echo chamber. You just want people to confirm that you are right in your thinking and okay.
So what Jacoby said, in our super polarized times, the superpower that celebrities have is that they can cross over the angry divide. So what I'm saying is in 2040, get ready for President The Rock and Vice President Taylor Swift.
It could be happening and everything, but
we had the Terminator as our governor.
Hey, governor, and we definitely had Jesse Ventura as the governor there in Minnesota and everything. But one thing that I was
Tommy Tuberville is the head coach.
echo chambers that have existed, and they've existed for a while. One of the most popular car stickers, and I don't think anybody's going to argue with me on this, and now there's one that's on the left. So I'm going to mention one that some people may consider to the right and one that some people may consider to the left. But one of the most popular car stickers was WWJD, which stood for What Would Jesus Do? And that was like looking at a kind of Christian perception, and it was a slogan that was asking what he would do if he was in those modern times. It was kind of the birth of the evangelical movement, is when we saw that bumper sticker, just like we now see folks that are on the left that have this whole notion of truth to power, because that is very much of a popular slogan as well. So those are both existing slogans that exist, and I would argue from different perspectives. I don't know if Shaquille or Jacoby would agree with me, but they are different.
I'm Jewish. I don't even believe in Jesus, but I kind of half pray to Jesus every day. Does Jesus show up and rapture a few thousand of the worst jackasses out of here?
Well, great idea.
Jesus was a Jew.
There's
Come
also
on.
this psychological phenomenon called the halo effect. In other words, it's like, and James Ead will appreciate this, if you see a good chess grandmaster and then they say something political, I believe in Trump, or I believe in Obama, or I believe in whoever, then we go, oh, because the chess grandmaster said A is a good person, then we have to agree because they have a halo effect, or they have some political agenda. We have to follow them because they're a grandmaster chess player. If you're a grandmaster chess player, you're good at everything else.
Nick, hold on a second. I've got to teach you about something.
There is this halo effect.
Totally nonsense.
Speaking of the halo effect, I've got to teach you about
Except
something.
it doesn't
Nick.
work with non-chess players.
No, I've got to ask you something, Nick. Hold on a second.
There can be an anti-halo effect as well.
No, there can never be an
If you're a
anti-halo
celebrity,
effect.
you've been in some movie, right? Maybe I like your movie, but I'm going to sit there and say, look, great, you're an actor. Like, why? How does that qualify you to tell me how I should vote? And to your point, Jacoby, in relation to
Ronald
in
Reagan was
relation
our
to the
governor.
gay rights stuff, I'm not saying that if all the shops and everything are promoting this, that I'm just going to go, well, I'm going to be against gay rights. Not being for something is not the same as being against it. But I think that a lot of people just go, look, why is there such a push for this group of people that I'm not part of? And that's why I think a lot of people just go, if all the celebrities and all that stuff are trying to push something,
but it's not.
They must have an agenda. I think that there's a.
It can work in
Ronald Reagan was a president.
Who was that?
Donald Trump was a president. They're both celebrities. So it's not all. You can't keep saying celebrities. Basically, it's about the echo chamber. It's about what people want to hear. They'll
what they don't want to hear.
chicks.
Well, Rick put his finger on it.
Celebrities.
They have the power to cross the divide.
It's also what you don't want to hear. You put a trans person on a Bud Light beer can, okay? And Joe Poolhall doesn't identify with a trans person. I'm sorry. So the thing is, the minute you do something like that, Joe Poolhall goes, I'm not going to buy that stupid Bud. They'll turn me into trans.
If they're drinking Bud Light, then they're low
there's a lot more
information
to it.
voters by definition.
There was a lot more to it.
Big mistake, Meatball.
It wasn't just
a
about
trans person in a pool hall.
Nonsense.
It wasn't
All
just
these
about
politics
that.
is nonsense. Let's
You
face
know,
it.
you
Just saying
travel
no
from
is
Kansas,
nonsense.
Nebraska,
All of the celebrity
Oklahoma,
stuff is bullshit.
Texas,
Come on.
with your trans.
Nick, it's not just
Come on.
about the person being
Ain't gonna
trans.
happen,
When they
buddy.
put Dylan
Keep
Mulvaney's
the
face,
trans in San Francisco. That's where it belongs.
When they
They're
put
in
them
North
on-
Carolina too, Nick.
No,
When
they're,
they put Dylan Mulvaney's-
they're not in the pool halls.
Yeah, they
when
are.
they
Well,
put
they-
Dylan
they-
Mulvaney's
surprised.
face-
There was one dude that lived
You
next
would
door
be
to me,
very
so they moved
surprised,
me.
I bet.
when they put
They-
Dylan
they-
Mulvaney's
they-
face on those Bud Light cans, and then got Dylan Mulvaney to promote this sponsorship deal. The thing is that Dylan Mulvaney was a controversial figure anyway, even amongst the LGBTQ community, because of the overdramatic way that he, as he was becoming a she, did this girls of this days of girlhood and stuff like that. A lot of people didn't like it. I don't think it was just that.
Well, we couldn't have blacks be spokesmen in one.
Plus, when
not
you've
too long
got
ago.
the Bud Light, the executives saying that it was fratty and all that sort of stuff, I think they just misread their customer base. But I do want to actually say I've been reading a very interesting book on the unofficial history of Australia, which is rather amusing, and they talked about why they didn't send too many convicts to the US after that failed. They decided to send them to us here in Australia, and they were talking about some of the early vessels and how some of the men on board dressed up as women. So I thought it was rather interesting for anybody who says that this didn't happen in the past.
Yeah, it's always
certainly
been the
did.
case.
And how some of the women dressed up as men
all
so
the
they could get onto the ships, and they were actually the wives of the captains and things like that. So they dressed them up as men, got them on board, and then hid them away in their chambers. So I thought that was an interesting little thing that's part of both Australia and the US's, convict history, thanks to Mother England.
Speaking of that and everything, there's a variety of slogans. I was actually going to mention some of these political slogans because one of them, I'm very curious to hear what a member of our panel has to say about it. But there are some various slogans that I found, including "Go Corruption, Go." Yes, that was the name of the slogan, was "Go Corruption, Go." Tsunami against corruption, justice, humanity, self-esteem. We are the change, which I've definitely heard that one before. Extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice, and moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue. England will fight to the last American. Glory to Ukraine. This is for definitely the folks that are there like Sasha. Glory to heroes. This one I love. He killed my mom. He killed my pa, but I will vote for him. Hey, hey, LBJ, how many kids did you kill today? No return to the status quo. And this is the one for you, Mr. Palbeda. Apparently there was a political slogan that said, I agree with Nick. That was literally the political slogan.
Really?
I agree with Nick.
The guy lost.
Something that no panelist on any Pod TV show has ever said.
That's true.
Hey, the only good Indian is a dead Indian. Look, a lot of these slogans are hate-filled. Come on.
Make America great again.
Slogans are often a sign of what's wrong with us, not what's right with us. And they aren't about agreeing with us. It's about getting people to align and think that they're in agreement on a just cause. And this is, we're being lied to, we're being manipulated. So this is why you have to think beneath the slogan and think what's behind it. Look who's saying
Make America great again.
Why are they saying it? Then
So-
you start to feel
A lot of
I'm
these
getting closer
slogans,
to the truth.
Jim, what you're talking about is perfectly spot on, because
they want to make America great again.
a lot of these slogans are, yes, they tend to create a boogeyman, and they tend to, hey, you're gonna hate this, but if you go this way, so it's all that. The slogans that work the best know that fear motivates individuals. And if you can scare this group into running this way and voting for you, that's what you're going to do. You're going to create a boogeyman. Just say no to drugs. Make America great again. And, honestly,
white again is what they meant.
Yeah. All these different slogans are all about somebody coming to attack you or some boogeyman coming to harm you. But this individual is your savior.
Yes.
So vote for the savior.
And they ask, what would Jesus do? And they always get the answer wrong.
Yeah, I know.
It's really funny.
Yeah, but along the
Jesus
same lines, how
wouldn't do
about the ads that are more dog whistles? Because you mentioned the thing with what you just came up with that term, Nick, and I forgot it already. But definitely there are dog whistle ads. I think we saw one of the most famous ones with George Bush and all along those lines, because it was around this whole furlough system, and it was the whole Willie Horton ad campaign. And a lot of folks say that was the reason that Dukakis lost, because they very much painted it as we're going to have a bunch of these folks that were going to come out of the prisons, out of the woodworks, if Dukakis was to have won. So it was definitely no doubt that was a dog whistle. And there have been other dog whistles as well, including some that are relatively famous. I think that there were some people, and maybe folks will agree with me or disagree with me, but there is a very popular syrup that is out there, and it's even popular to this day, but folks are not always pleased with the imagery that goes around that syrup. And I'm thinking about Aunt Jemima and all along those lines.
You don't even have to go Aunt Jemima.
Why do you hate Aunt Jemima?
You can actually look at Ron DeSantis' ad that he put out, where it was this manly man campaign, where he was attacking the LGBTQIA community. I mean, he put out what the irony behind it. He put up one image that was what's my man's name, who played Batman in Dark Knight.
Christian Bale.
Yeah, he put up an image of Christian Bale from what was it, American Psycho, and that was supposed to be the manly man.
Yeah, if you're nuts, you're a real man.
Yeah,
but you got to be nuts to be a real man. But along those same lines, and speaking of slogans,
but again, there are studies that show that testosterone levels and the what has historically been masculine traits in males have decreased, not just over the last couple of decades, but they're decreasing even more rapidly. And nobody wants to talk about it in academic circles. Nobody wants to talk about whether or not there are potential treatment options for it and things like that. And there's no research being done on the lowering of testosterone levels and how that affects both men and women. And now we're actually beginning to see that in other animals on this planet. Now, if we're having that, if that's an observable thing, then perhaps we should actually have a look at it. But I think that you have a lot of people that don't resonate and don't identify as part of the LGBTQ community that are sick and tired of being attacked for toxic masculinity, for being a patriarchy, and the bad guys for being part of it, etc. That's why you get that subject, Shaquille.
That's
drugs and chemicals end up in the worldwide water supply, and they feminize everything on the planet. I've noticed as I get older in the past year or so, my testosterone has dropped a lot. Now I have to decide whether I want to go on T and so I can get big pecs again, and so my wiener works again. And then, but I'm also like a little bit psycho because I'm full of testosterone, like Robert Kennedy Jr.
I just warned you, Rick, that from what I've heard, especially the trans community, that if you do go on T, your voice might get deeper and you might end up growing a beard. So I'm just letting you know.
Okay.
All right.
Didn't your voice used to be higher,
just in case it comes as a shock to you.
Yeah, it was all that tea that he started drinking and all of those lines. But I did have a quick question for everybody, which is, what about reverse advertisement and reverse slogans? Because one of the things I think I mentioned on World Edition I saw recently, one of the things I saw on World Edition recently was that there are some people like the Koch brothers that are literally putting ads out. I saw one earlier this morning, or maybe it was yesterday, that was about why they shouldn't vote for Trump and everything, because they are basically saying that, this could be very detrimental and that they are basically pushing against Trump. They aren't saying that they're voting for DeSantis. They aren't saying that they're voting for Vivek. They're just saying basically anybody but Trump.
Well, they were voting for DeSantis until DeSantis made a fool out of himself, and unfortunately, trying to be a toxic masculine man when he wasn't.
Exactly.
He came across as a phony. So, why don't you try to be yourself and let the voters decide whether they want you or not?
Well, James, what sort of weird and wonderful world do you live in where any politician's going to just be themselves?
Well, it's a weird, it used to be the American way. You didn't put on this show and be something that the populace wanted you to be. And you were a leader. You led the people so that they looked up to you. See, it's a different way of looking at the world, Shaq. And I agree that it's out of fashion right now, but it doesn't mean it's gone forever.
No, that's right. And look, I'll tell you, I think that when someone like Gavin Newsom, whose policies I don't really agree with, we all know that, but when someone like him, or when him specifically, goes on to Sean Hannity and holds his own, goes into the lion's den, holds his own, makes really good arguments for why Democrat policy is a good idea, what some of the failures are, like homelessness and a rising crime rate. And he actually said at one point in that interview, well, what do you want us to do? Take Kentucky's, was it Kentucky or Nebraska or somebody who had this no tax situation and it was terrible?
Kansas.
Sort of the Kansas. Yeah. Which was what conservatives and things have been saying. Oh, we just want no tax. Tax is theft. I say that. Tax is theft. I always say that term. So Kansas went, okay, well, we'll do it. Look what happened. So if Gavin Newsom to bring that up and say, well, what exactly do you want us to do? Should we emulate the economic system of Mississippi and Alabama and all that? I thought, yeah, look, he made some good points. I won't pay all of them, but I thought they were good points. I don't think that you get much of that you don't really get that sort of depth from someone like Ron DeSantis, because, as Jatovi points out, he'll come out there and say what's wrong, hit the LGBT community, this and that. This is where woke's going to go and die and all that sort of stuff. It's like, yeah, that's great, but what else are you going to do? And even like with the notion of all we have to do is just turn the pipelines back on, get oil running again in the US, and all the problems will be solved. Yeah, but one of the issues is climate change. One of the issues is a desire for us to switch to a cleaner energy source. What you should be doing, in my opinion, and if you're on a centre-right party anywhere in the world, you've dropped the ball on this one. You need to say, we believe that the right way forward is this. Outline what you think the energy policy should look like. why your energy policy is better than your opponent's, what the effects are going to be both on the environment and economically, then you've got something to argue about. But making the argument fossil fuel versus not fossil fuel is ridiculous, and nobody's going for it. So the center right party
economy. It's not the either or choice, but that's all we understand is either or, one or the other.
Yeah.
Biden has quietly broken a bunch of his campaign promises about fossil fuel, and we are generating the most fossil fuels in America right now in history.
But see, Rick, I'll say that both Biden and other politicians, one of the things that I dislike is what I consider to be their lack of ability to take responsibility. One of the things that not being an American, but one of the things that has really turned me off Biden was the withdrawal from Afghanistan. I think that it was done totally wrongly. But I will just say this. I think it was the right decision. It was absolutely the right decision to pull out of Afghanistan. Yeah. I think history will reflect that. I have a problem with the way it was done. I have a problem with the people that were left behind. And I have a problem with the fact that he then just said, well, I've turned the page on it. That was the end of it. But there's still people there now. If he had come out and said,
you got to talk about that. That's not that you can't. I can't let you just say that.
I'll let you respond to it. But let me just finish. If he had have just come out and said, look, we're withdrawing from a place. It's always going to be messy. Things didn't quite go the way that we planned. I'm sorry that there were people left behind. I'm sorry that these things have happened, and we're going to do everything we can. But we had to pull out at some point. And look, this is not quite what was ideal. But what are we going to do? When the United States pulled out of Vietnam, there was all sorts of problems as well. So, I think that if he had said those sorts of things, I would have a bit more respect for him, and I think a lot of other people would have a lot more respect for him. And the truth of the matter is that his poll numbers took a dive after the Afghanistan withdrawal. They've never recovered. So it would seem to me that obviously there is some dislike of how he took people out of how he withdrew from.
Well, of course, and Jack, I think that's my cue to chime in. One is Trump announced that we were withdrawing.
I agree.
And so Biden came in and inherited that awful situation. And then Biden and all of his advisors misjudged the fact that the Afghan army that they had been training and arming for 20 years would lay down and let the Taliban walk in. So they totally miscalculated the situation. And I also agree that if, because it was handled so poorly by miscalculation, that I don't blame them for miscalculating. If the Afghans had a fraction of what the Ukraine fighting forces have shown, the Taliban would not have gotten an inch. Yet they walked in, and so they didn't expect that, and it turned into a disaster. And he should have said, "We made a mistake. Withdrawal is not the mistake we made, but not arming and supporting U.S. troops doing their job." Protecting people as long as necessary. Relying on the Afghan army was a mistake.
So,
and I think
this was a mistake. Sorry, I just want to quickly say this, Joey, and you can respond. Play. I just want to quickly, because it's relevant, hyper relevant to that. Jim, again, I think we're on the same page. It was the way that they did it that I think was a mistake. But I think from an international perspective, I'm a citizen of two of Australia's allies, being the UK and a citizen of two of the US's allies, being Australia and the UK. We were in Afghanistan as well. So were other countries that were allies of the United States. And the feeling amongst our countries was like, what's just happened there? Because all the focus in the media was about America, what America had done. But we as well had also made promises to people over there. And we were stuck having to follow America out.
Yeah.
And that's why I think, I said at the time that I thought he should have been censured internationally for it, or whatever process there is for the international community to say it was wrong. And I actually thought that the UK should have gone back in if the United States didn't want to. Should have made a unilateral decision to do that. But I won't go into the politics of that. I'll just say that
was announced in Trump that we were going, so we had no choice to go, and we relied on the Afghans.
In relation to messaging, though.
Yeah,
because they don't want to take any responsibility and say we did this wrong, but we did everything else right. They don't say anything at all, and so the conclusion.
And he did take a hit, and there's no question about it. However, let's put it in the context of we had to get out.
But Jim, the point I'm making is messaging. You can put it in the context.
I totally understand. You made your point. The point is also that it was a disaster no matter what he did. And that was the point. You either stay in indefinitely or you get out and hope the Afghan people can manage their own country. And it turned out they couldn't. The Taliban waltzed right back in. And I'd say it again, if they had a fraction of what the Ukraine fighting forces have shown, the Taliban would not have gotten an inch. Ukraine fighters would have kept them out, and the Afghan fighters were well trained, well armed. They could have kept them out.
So, but again, Jim, what you're doing is you're explaining all those things. As I said, I'm not trying to debate with you what they shouldn't have done. I'm saying to you that if people have a negative,
you made your point, I've granted your point. The messaging was poor.
Yeah. No, speaking of messaging, real quick. Hold on a second. Speaking of messaging, that's the reason I put that up, because y'all earlier made "Make America Great," and that was a popular slogan. It is now being co-opted by other folks as well. So one of the debates is happening in North Carolina because there is a push to go up to Virginia to do your gambling and all along those lines. So there was a push to get the slogans and to get casinos here in North Carolina. And as you will go see, there is a big pushback against that, and they are basically co-opting the "Make America Great" slogan, because if you look, it says "Keep the community great, no casino." So they're basically saying that if we don't have casinos, the community will be better. Those folks that want to gamble can go across the border to Virginia. Those folks that don't can stay here, and all along those lines.
I love those small government, libertarian loving Republicans that are going to tell you what you can and can't do with your money. Well done, conservatives, brilliant.
We don't want, because you can't spend money in casinos, but we're behind you for states' rights.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the discussion between Shaq and Jim is exactly the discussion, a prime example of messaging and how messaging works. And I think, Shaq, you were trying to allude to that, and Jim, I think you were trying to allude to that as well. But that is exactly the Republican Party and the Democrat Party. Democrat Party wants to make sure that we understand what's going on and all the nuances of, but that's not what's easy to understand. That's not the quick thing. The quick thing, we want in and out. We want the bumper sticker. We want to know, okay, well, the president pulled people out. Boom, we're done.
So calling it the Democrat Party is in itself messaging. The Republicans started calling the Democratic Party the Democrat Party because it sounds creepier a little bit, and it doesn't have democratic in it. And now people regularly call it the Democrat Party.
Well, I thought it was always the Democrat Party from way back when, and the Democratic Party was the change, but I stand corrected.
Well, no, I could be. I mean, I always pull stuff out of my butt. I don't know. But
wasn't it originally the Democrat Republicans v. the Whigs? Actually, no, it was another party, wasn't it?
The Whigs were earlier,
yeah. And then it became Democrat Republicans.
And there was the Know Nothing Party. Let's never forget that.
Yeah. I think they're still around here.
Too damn high party.
Well, Sasha, are there any slogans in Canada that we should know of?
I wanted to touch the slogan "No Casino." There is a huge fight in Canada, right here in Ontario, about casino business. In fact, there were a lot of new casinos lately opened around Toronto. And the idea was that these are fun places. People want to come in, gamble a little, have a good time. So about a week ago, with my friend, I visited one of the newest casinos. It's only 40 minutes drive from where I live. So it's 5 stars resort property. In a casino, blackjack table, minimum bet is $100. And it's not really so much for fun the way I looked at it. Although I liked it because most of the time I would play by myself against the dealer. And even occasionally somebody walked in, I would stop putting any bets, so the guy would lose a couple of $100, few $100, and he would walk away, so I could continue to make bets. I did quite well, won almost $1,000 there. And there are 5-star restaurants, 5-star hotel on that property. So it's typical commercial operation. I don't see how they can say that this is for fun, that this is for people, because how many people can
Right.
play blackjack $100 minimum? Very
Right.
few, frankly. And on the other hand,
Were there no cheaper tables?
yes, there were a few cheaper tables. But what they did, they did Spanish 21. And the main distinction between normal blackjack and the Spanish version is that in case of a blackjack, you're being paid 6 to 5. See, the major point of blackjack is that it pays 3 to 2. And this what allows you to have, with the right strategy or so on, almost equal odds. You're still you're still 48.5%
Right.
down, so the house has advantage. But that's managed.
Blackjack has a moving house edge depending on the cards that have been dealt, unlike a game like Baccarat. But to be fair, even if you take the average house edge and say it's 3%, if you're sitting on a $10 table, what's the casino going to make? 30 cents per hand. So, of course, they're going to try and increase that house edge. If you go to, it's public information that I had a significant win at the casino, or the casinos in Australia, and I was betting $200,000 a hand, and then I was betting $100,000 a hand on 2 different tables at one point. Using money I'd won, that was a risk that I was prepared to take. But I was playing a game with a rebate kicked in, so that a game with a house edge of 1.06% gave me a cash rebate of 0.07% plus 0.3% in comps. I'm playing that game for free. It didn't really matter. Over a long term, I was going to break even, or go close to breaking even. It just happened that I won in the 8 digits.
So your definition of fun is different from mine, Shaq.
No, of course. But here's the thing. But here's the thing, Jim. I don't tell the story very often, but I snuck into a casino. I'm not going to name the casino for various legal reasons, but I snuck into a casino when I was 12, and I went in there with 50 cents. There was a big learner's table with a big learner's plate, which in Australia is like when you're learning how to drive, there's a particular plate. And this was like rotating around. So I went to the learner's table, learned how to play. And I thought, well, this sounds pretty easy. So to cut the long story short, I took my 50 cents, I put it in a slot machine. It didn't work that way. And somebody else had left $1 in a slot machine. I hit the button and I won this jackpot. I won like $150. And I actually left that casino with $5,200. And then I used my school bus pass. I didn't realize what time it was. I used my school bus pass to catch the bus to get back home, to put my school uniform on to go to school. And I couldn't do anything with the $5,200 because I can't exactly go to the bank with it. So I had this money hidden under the bed and hidden everywhere else. But that's where I started.
Safest place to keep it.
Well, that's right. And I then started going around with like small bets, $25 bets, $100 bets, all that sort of stuff. And of course, again, which is public information, just before I turned 18, certain casinos wanted me to go and play in the World Championships in Vegas. I had been lying to them since I was 12. So by their records, I was 27, but I was actually 17. And I knew, because you need to have a special visa to go to the United States, that I couldn't go. There was just no way I was going to get away with it. Mm-hmm. Unbeknownst to me, they put an application for me anyway. And the US rang and said, this guy's like 17. And they're like, no, he's not 17. He's been flying around the country on private jets.
He's got a full beard.
Why hasn't anybody made a movie out of this?
And in the end, I got banned from every casino, but they couldn't ban me because I was still 17. They had to wait until my 18th birthday. And
they had to wait until you were legal to ban you.
They came and knocked on my door. It was the first knock I got on my door on the 18th birthday. I answered the door. They said, Mr. Latter. I said, yes. They said, happy birthday. You're banned for life from all these casinos. And then they've unbanned me and rebanned me.
Sasha, and then I know we're going to turn it back over to Nick in this whole conversation around slogans, but I love this slogan that apparently exists in Canada, and all along those lines I put it up earlier, and I was wondering if it fits into your life and everything, because apparently it says that you can't keep calm because you're Canadian. That's what the slogan said, and all along those lines. So I was wondering if it is a worthwhile slogan for the Canadians, because it says that, can't keep calm, you're a Canadian.
They're so polite.
Never seen it.
They're so polite. I don't understand that.
So that's just a rip off of the original British slogan, which was a slogan that was created for World War II, keep calm and carry on, but which wasn't even used. Somebody found it decades later and was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it's proliferated.
Right.
Well, I think some of the slogans and some of the things that we're told to make no sense. What do you mean keep calm? In the case of emergency, keep calm. You're like, yeah, there's a big siren going off, and I'm just being told that it's a nuclear bomb that's heading my way. Nothing to worry about. Just kick the legs up, maybe crack a beer.
Adrenaline shoots through your system for a reason sometimes. There's a bus heading at you. You've got to get out of the way.
This afternoon, I went to the back and I smelled smoke, and I looked at it. Is there a bushfire? Because there's bushes right near us, and as you guys know, we had my heart goes out to Hawaii, but we had a pretty severe bushfire during COVID. We had COVID, we had a bushfire, then we had some floods, then finally we were let out of the house, only be told, hey, look, we've got a Delta strain, you need to now lock down your house. So 2020 in Australia, in Sydney especially, wasn't great, but they were actually backburning. But of course, your heart just jumps when it first happens because you think, what's the problem? So.
Actually, one of the best Canadian slogans many years ago was, "It's better at the Bahamas." This is
That's prior to global warming, when Canada is now warm, but it used to be a cold country, so everybody fled Canada to go to Florida or go to the Bahamas or get out of Canada. Now that's not the case anymore. Everything's changed, Sasha. As a matter of fact, hurricanes don't hit North Carolina anymore; they hit Nova Scotia. So you guys are basically
North Carolina. Different. They'll still hit North Carolina.
Look at the last one. They're heading up to Canada, and they're spawning in the Caribbean. They never spawned in the Caribbean. Always was.
Yeah, but they got to go through Florida to get there.
They got to go through Florida, and I want to say the last one was coming, which actually was Hurricane Lee, and I want to say that it was heading in this general direction, and it impacted our weather yesterday and over the weekend, and they're saying it might have impacted some more over the middle of the weekend, all in that space. So they are still hitting North Carolina, to Jim's point, and everything.
If you're in the Outer Banks.
Since we're talking about slogans still, and since AI is going to take all of our jobs anyway, I just asked ChatGPT what a slogan for Canada was, and it actually came up with a slogan that's close to one of the slogans already. It says, Canada, true north, strong and free.
Yeah.
In what way is Canada free?
Canada is a great anthem, by the way.
Because no one lives there.
Canada.
Well, the slogan for Australia is Australia, land of sun, surf, and spirit.
Ooh,
yeah.
Lots of spirit.
There was so much contention about this because when Arthur Banks came over here with Captain Cook, he was rather... then Arthur Phillip came over on the behest of the advice given to him by Banks. He was told that this was a wonderful, beautiful country and the locals had no real issues. I'd just leave you alone. And in the end, they came over here. They couldn't grow any food. They had no access to clean drinking water. Then the French decided to come, and then they had to move from Botany Bay up to Sydney Harbour. So, the land of the milk and honey that was promised to the Brits didn't quite eventuate somehow.
Well, everything in Australia.
Shaquille and Jacoby, I've got a new slogan for America and everything, and I think that folks may enjoy it. It's actually coming back to what Shaquille said and everything. So maybe the slogan for America should be "Where the lost people go," because definitely we know that Columbus was lost. A number of other folks were lost as well. So that could be the new slogan: "Where the lost people go."
Well, the slogan that GPT just came up with, the slogan for the United States: "United we stand for freedom and dreams."
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
Let me tell you about the freedom
that
you have in the United
States.
States.
Got a long way to go.
And James, I'd love for your response or Rick's response to this one, because I think the other panelists have heard me say this before. Statue of Liberty given to the United States by France to represent your liberty. And what has the United States put on it? A no smoking sign. And the irony of being told what you cannot do plastered on the symbol of your liberty. I don't know why.
You're confusing. It's not the Statue of License. It's the Statue of Liberty. And you have to be licensed to drive. You have to be licensed to shoot and kill. You know,
You didn't
the
used to.
licenses are available for certain activities, so
You
you're
didn't
not
used
free
to.
to do anything you want.
But you didn't used to have to, James. Anybody could get a horse and just jump on their horse and wagon
Well,
off.
think about it this way, just to drop this nugget of joy or this bomb in this conversation. People are upset that during a song about freedom, people want to use their freedom and kneel.
Oh yeah.
But along good
That's
point.
not what
But
people
along
are
those
saying
same
about
lines,
people.
I got a question for you, Shaquille. And actually, this is for everybody on the panel since you brought it up and everything. In some of the ways, and since we're talking slogans and all along those lines, and this is me doing a very bad attempt to be having the humor of a Jatobia and everything. But isn't Lady Liberty lighting up as well? Because, like I said, she's got that whole light that's going on.
Oh. Yeah, she doesn't stick the torch in her mouth. Once she does that, let me know.
She tried to. The French glued her arm up like this, so she's for eternity wanting to take a drag, but she can't because it's just there. That's why she doesn't really look that happy if you have a good close look at her face. She's a little bit stern about the situation. Just one drag every couple hundred years.
It's a republic if we can hold it. We have to be a little bit stern.
It says something on there like give me your poor, you're tired, you're huddled masses.
Yep.
Doesn't it say that? Then it says underneath in parentheses, just kidding, go back home.
Yep.
Is that what it says?
I want to mention
the parentheses were added by the Trump administration, but yeah.
I want to mention Future America's slogan from the movie Idiocracy, which is Rondo. It's got electrolytes.
That's such a great movie. I love that movie.
In one of my Ukrainian shows, I've invented the new slogan for Russia. Russia is the first ever third world country with the snow.
Ooh.
Think about that.
Stay away from bars that dispense poison in Canada. That's all I can say, Sasha. And don't go on private planes flying over Russia.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Well, you can just don't go with the founder of the Wagner Group. Is generally might be a bad health idea. Maybe the Surgeon General needs to put a health advisory on that one.
Hey, Rick, I know we're winding down, but I know you brought up AI on a number of shows and everything. So I want to know, and maybe Toby can look it up. What is the slogan for AI? Because I know AI and VR are very popular and everything. So do they have a slogan yet? And if not, will they come up with a slogan and everything? So is there a slogan
AI is
for
almost a slogan itself because
nowadays
it's got intelligence right in there. It's like selling the idea that, oh, this is a smart thing. When right now it's pretty dumb. It's years away from being smart.
We're used to artificial sweeteners.
Why not just ask the AI? Which says AI is elevate intelligence with AI, the future unleashed.
Woo.
but it would say
right,
that it's artificial. It's like a blonde that dyes her hair brown. I mean, it doesn't necessarily, it's totally artificial. That's what's going on these.
A blonde who dyes her hair brown.
That's what they call a real blonde, right?
No, that's what like Margot Robbie does when she wants to get an Oscar nomination.
Oh, good point.
I thought she just got a gear off like she did in Wolf of Wall Street. See, if there was some scenes like that in Barbie, I'd be straight down there. But there's not. So, and it's really not very.
But they looked at the demographics, Shaquille, and you weren't in it.
Well, but see, they would expand. They would have expanded their total audience if they kept true to what Barbie actually was. Now, every heterosexual.
I liked it. I think Jatovi told me that
every heterosexual boy knows
Barbie wasn't sexy enough.
Every heterosexual boy knows if you look up Barbie's dress, she's not wearing any knickers. Now, if that was the show and they kept Barbie true to that, I'd be there watching it. But
that did come up.
Wait, just to go on that.
Down there.
Yeah, I know. So you're going to look at a plastic piece of nothing? That's what gets you off?
Well, if I'm 5 or 6 years old, yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm going to be looking at.
I think Margot Robbie.
There you go, right there. That's
any opportunity to look at that age.
I know we're wrapping up and everything.
That's some of that toxic masculinity for you.
No, Dick, I know we're wrapping up and all along those lines, but I would argue that every slogan that has ever been out there, because we've oftentimes talked about that. I know Rick talks about it on his show and everything, but everything that has become a popular movie then also becomes a popular porn movie. So I imagine that we will see the porn version of Barbie. So the young 5-year-old man can see that.
I didn't think of that, but yes.
Probably already out there.
Jim, quick, you guys are in California, please, quickly, go in. I've got a plane to catch. That's my alarm. Go in.
I think they call
go
it
and, go and get the rights for that movie.
That was your porn alarm. Okay.
If we need a backer, I know who to call.
Then Shaquille will watch it. But in the meantime, we got to end this show. So we want to thank our viewers from the United States and, of course, around the world for watching the media show. And I look forward to watching that sports show from George Washington. When's it going to be on next?
It's airing every Monday, so it'll be on next Monday. They may do another episode in the middle of the week, but it will be airing the one that we taped for the rest of this week. But they are looking at taping some more, so they are excited about doing the show and are very pleased. And we'll be bringing on some guests as well, so we'll be learning about all kinds of sports.
For next week's media show, I think it'd be interesting if you discuss the Alex Murdaugh case in South Carolina and what's happening with the media with all that, because it's looking like he could potentially get a new trial, and obviously there's a lot of media attention on it. So
that's true. All right. Yep. And we'll see you next week on the media show. Till then, bye-bye.